I am by I oh, 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 oh. I, die, 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 die. I, die, 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 die. I, die, 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 die. Yai, die, 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 I'm by and I. I, die, 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 die. I, die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. I. Friday once more. Feels like it's always a Friday. It would be nice if it was always a Friday, maybe. For some of us, yes. For some of us, no. But Friday is another chance for us to check in, but another chance for us to dive deeper into before letting go and being, right? We dive in one more time for a little thirst, for a little bit more knowledge before we take a breather, a step back to allow Shabbat to flow in. So we were talking about on Wednesday, we were talking about Ve'et Chanan, the portion that we're in currently. And it has so many different layers and meanings. And we talked about the easy or the in your face ones, which were that we talked about, but we were talking about them, was Moses' plea to enter the land, even though God was like, nope, sorry. The Shema, the call to worship that says like, hey, wait a second. We barachud, we got ourselves to community, and now we're focusing in on the monotheistic element of our religion, making it what it is. There is only one God for us. And then we talked about the covenant and the responsibility for commitment and passing traditions and acceptance and accountability. And so there are a few more themes that I think hit home, or maybe they do and maybe they don't, but at least from a learning perspective, there are a couple of more things in this parsha that I think hold some meaning, which could help us in whatever way they can, if simply from an educational standpoint, or maybe we connect to them in our hearts and in our minds a little bit deeper. So in this parsha, Moses repeats the 10 commandments, which were originally given at Sinai. But the repetition is significant because it reinforces the importance. Why do we read a book more than once? To deepen our understanding. That's Torah. Why do we say something multiple times? Because we want to make sure the listener is hearing and listening. Shema, hearing and listening. Why do we as parents have to repeat ourselves over and over? Because it takes time to sink in. The repetition of these laws, the repetition of these commandments highlights that they're just not historical events. They're just not from the past. At Sinai, these were the 10 commandments. It's a timeless thing. It's timeless principles that continue to guide our people. 10 versus 613, the top 10. Most of us do most of them. And the 613, we're always working towards incorporating more into our repertoire. So in our world today, where values are constantly being challenged, where our moral compass sometimes goes askew. The 10 Commandments is a free, clear framework for ethical living. The Ten Commandments speak to the universal need for laws and ethics that protect and uplift society. Simply. The message is especially important in times when there's division and conflict. It's the foundation, yes, is does justice come with more complexity in today's time? Absolutely. But the Ten Commandments is a foundation for justice, for respect, and for care for others. Simply. The repetition of the Ten Commandments is our reminder to say, if we can't do anything, we can at least do these. And if we do these, then our world will be more just, have more respect, and the care for others will be there, a little bit more present in our lives. The second important topic is the importance of humility and gratitude. Moses urges the Israelites to remember God's role in their prosperity once they enter the land of Israel. Like, hey, don't forget where you came from, kind of thing. He also warns them not to forget that they depend on God, but mostly not to forget after they're settled and they're enjoying the fruit of the land. It says, when you have eaten and are satisfied, praise God for the good land that God has given you. It is like, no matter what, even if I forget the actual text, but even if you're being attacked by intruders, you still have to be, while you're eating dinner, you get attacked. After you eat dinner, you get attacked. You still have to be thankful for the food that you just ate. Even if they were perpetrators. How is this relevant? Why does this matter? Why do we have to think about, we got what we want, but the importance is, how do we get there? We got to thank what came before. So this part of this parsha speaks to the need for humility and gratitude, but most especially when we experience success and comfort. So we live in a world of individuality or individualism and entitlement. And so sometimes it overshadows, I'm not going to say always and for all, but there are times when entitlement and individualism overshadow communal responsibility. It's inevitable. It just is what it is. That is the truth of the way we live in the world that we live. And so this message reminds us that we need to be humble, right? I mean, that's good for everybody. And grateful for what we have, not only as individuals, but as a society. And so we can encourage that reflection on how we relate to the blessings we receive. It may be material wealth, it may be personal achievement, it may be support of our community. Are we quick to take credit, or do we take a moment to recognize the role of others? Like, other people helped get you there, or this place to where it is. And then, of course, do we take a second to think about the influence of the divine in our lives? For each of us, this means a different thing. The third next layer, or next level deeper, is the call for vigilance and memory. Moses stresses the importance of remembering God's commandments and passing them to future generations, right? Yesterday we talked about what is our role, or why should we, why is it our responsibility to pass on our traditions, right? So future generations know it. That's the point, of course. How do we know it's real? We don't know it's real. We only know that it was passed from parent to child to parent to child to parent to child until we got here. So it's like a game of telephone. You take a risk. But in the lessons that we learn, we know But there is importance of remembering what came, taking it, and passing it on. Moses emphasizes the need to keep the teachings close to their hearts. It even suggests physical reminders like what? A mezuzah, right? Tefillin, for those that wear tefillin. To keep God's word present in your everyday, because what's in there, Shema ve'ahavta. Those are the blessings. One God, and to love God with all that you have. Simply. How does it relate to us today? We need to, in our fast-paced, powerful world, this call to be humble and to have gratitude sometimes just falls out the window, and to be reminded and to remember and to stay aware, to stay vigilant is even harder, right? It's hard to be humble. It's hard to have gratitude in moments where they're like fast paced and we're moving along and things are great. It's also hard when things aren't great. How do we find humility and how do we find gratitude? And in those moments, we need to be vigilant. We need to be aware. We need to have it in our hyper focus, in our right in front of our faces. And we need to remember that in this forgotten world, there are so many distractions and we lose sight. We all do. We are all guilty of this. We lose sight of what truly matters. It could be faith. It could be values. It could be commitment to one another. It happens. The idea that memory can be connected to a current discussion about the importance of preserving history or continuing to educate future generations about our shared history, especially when we are in this world or in this cosmos of misinformation and disconnection from our roots. It's more important now than it ever was. And it's also relevant to consider how we preserve and share memory in our own families and in our communities. How do we pass down the teachings? What traditions are important to us? Do we do them just simply because they're tradition? Do we know what the value of it is? Do we know why we do it? Do you do it differently than someone else does, yet it's your own tradition? Is it Torah or is it culture? It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it's passed along and shared and discussed. That the stories ensure that our lives are connected and have the possibility and potential to shape the future. In the words of Ve'ahavta, the second paragraph of Shema, well, after the lines of Shema, the beginning of Shema, we talked about it. Shema is the love for God, that there is only oneness. That is it. Followed by the command that says, love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. The love for God is not passive. It's active. It requires engagement. This call to love God with all of that we are is understood to say, have faith, right? Have faith. In a world where faith is often compartmentalized or seen as something separate from everyday life, this week's Parsha, Parshat Ve'etchanan, invites us to integrate our spiritual lives into every aspect of who we are. Whether it's relationship or work or social action, it doesn't matter. But to say that we are fully invested in connection. And lastly, it's not lastly, but lastly for today in our deep diver, Ve'etchanan offering, is the promise of God's presence. Moses calls on the Israelites to remain faithful to God's commandments and warns that turning to idolatry or abandoning the commandments will bring consequences. He says, he emphasizes, he repeats himself that God is with them. But it's not just God is with you. It is the faithfulness that is required in order to be in connection. Listen, Judaism is one of those faiths that comes with a lot of weaving, with a lot of loopholes, with a lot of bumps in the road, and it is also a religion where it's a religion, faith-based religion, but it's also, being Jewish could be cultural. And so there's a definite line between, but there is a permeable membrane barrier which allows us to flow in and out depending on where we are. But there, in these days, when there's turmoil, when there's unrest, when there's war, when there's anti-Semitism, when there's this, it will either disconnect you from God or it will bring you closer. And so God's promise and presence is something that some of us struggle with. It reminds us that even in hardship or in prosperity, God is with us, but we have to be attuned to the meaning of that. Living our lives according to commandments, living our lives according to tradition that says there's one God and we should love God and we should do our best in the world. We have to stay attuned to it. Right? It's like people are present in your life, but if you're not in relationship with the person, there needs to be conversation, there needs to be dialogue, there needs to be growth, you have to put the work in. It's no different than our relationship with God. And this also could be extremely meaningful for people today who feel a sense of spiritual isolation or disconnection. It serves as a reminder as to say God's presence is not something to be sought in moments of crisis, but it should be part of the fabric of your everyday life. So as Shema invites us to love God with our whole being, and how in turn this love calls us to actively live our lives with value, with tradition, with respect. The contemporary concerns are personal responsibility in the community, the importance of making value-based decisions or value-driven decisions in times of adversity, how we integrate our spirituality into our professional and personal lives. These are ways we learn from Torah. Presence, faith, vigilance, memory, humility, gratitude, repetition, love, tradition, accountability, acceptance. All of these things in this week's Parsha drive us home. Remind us of promise. It wasn't easy. We got here. And now that we got here, yay, check the box. No. Now that we got here, we continue to work. We woke up this morning. Was that something to check the box? Yes, not everybody does. So we woke up this morning and we checked our box. Now what? We still have to do the work today. It doesn't get us off the hook. It reminds us of all of the work that we need to do. Some of us will do less of it. Some of us will do more of it. Some of us will coast by. It's no different than when you were in school. Some work hard. Some comes easy too. They don't do anything. Our job is to continue to drive forward. We need to find a way to make these lessons that we learn in Torah relevant, to keep them alive, to say, hey, wait, it's not going to be easy, but I promise, as God promised, I know that I need to be active in faith. It's not just like, oh, God's here, so that's good. You need to keep that alive in your life, that you need to be vigilant, that you need to know that humility and gratitude is the basis for all. Be humble, be grateful, and do your work in the world to make it a better place. I'm grateful you decided to join me this morning. Lita and Corey, Ann, Paula, Geneva, Elisa, Suze, Bet, Linda, whoever else is watching that didn't check in. It's a blessing to be with you and to continue to learn with you. Tonight we'll be together at 6:30 for Shabbat services. I hope you'll join us. And then tomorrow again at 9:30 in the morning. We are one human family, one heart of abundant love. We love you. And we're going to see you tonight at 6:30. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 Od Avinu Chai. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Have a great day.